Welcome to Victims and Villains. This is the show where we talk nerd, we talk hope, and we speak nothing else. I'm your host, Captain Nostalgia.
Wait, Josh.
What's
Wrong
up?
show.
Um,
Hello, everybody. I am Anthony, your host of the Retro Gamers, and co-hosting with me this week because Larry is off. I think Larry's dealing with the Los Angeles hangover. Either that or a Los Angeles and Thanksgiving hangover. Apparently, he couldn't handle it out here in Tinseltown. So filling in for him this week. From Victims and Villains, as you heard earlier. Let's give a nice hello to Captain Nostalgia, Josh.
what's up? It has been a while since we have
It's been a
not since we've
very long
talked,
time.
but since I've been on the show.
Yeah, I think the last episode you were on the 100th episode, if I'm not mistaken, right?
Yeah, I'm like I like ever since the more of the same network. I'm kind of like the kind of like little just looking in like little Timmy from A Christmas Story, just like
Just
it looks so
st-
warm in there.
staring in the window longingly like a creepy stalker. I get it. It's totally cool.
Yeah,
But yeah, no. And actually, this is the first time you're joining us, I believe, on video, if I'm not mistaken.
it is, and I have also tried to test with video, and people just like to use black screen, and I'm like, I am not going to fight you, so cool.
Nope. Nope. And I would like to thank you for wearing clothes, which are very important. I know you threatened not to.
I did, but then I was like, my wife. I thought my wife's voice got stuck in my head. She was like, "When you do videos, wear our clothes." So you can pick this up at etsy.com/shops/victims and villains. It is a spin on the X-Files, and it says hope is out there, and all of the proceeds go towards suicide prevention.
Very cool. We'll get more into where everybody can find you a little bit later in the show. But otherwise, just wanted to. Well, first off, like, how are things with you? How's life? What's new and exciting before we jump into our retro game topics today?
So, man, life's been good. We're close to winding down to the year. We have pretty much all of our episodes of the year, the rest of the year recorded, minus Aquaman, which we'll be doing with the good guys over at Official Spice of Life and our resident movie guide, Mr. Dan Rockwood. But man, life has been good. We've been just setting back, and we got like new logo, so like we're pretty much like redoing everything. Dallas Mora from Geek Devotions did a great job on it, and just been it's just been one of those seasons where it's kind of like everything's like transitioning. So like I'm trying to like wrap up what I'm currently on and like transitioning into the next phase.
All right, sounds good. And how was your Thanksgiving?
Thanksgiving was amazing. Thanksgiving it was super low key and intimate, which like every year it's normally like a lot of like family. It's like every time you walk into a room there's like eight more people that ask the same exact question that you've been answering all day, which
Hmm.
isn't a bad thing, but I mean when you can sit down at a table with 10 other people and then just conversate about how life's been and just how life has been going and what you guys have been working on and stuff like that. Like it's and then everything else on top of it, it's a much more different setting. So it's cool. How was your Thanksgiving?
Thanksgiving was actually really, really good. My mom came out to visit. She usually does around the Thanksgiving holiday. So she is actually here right now as I'm recording, which is why I'm in my office and not in my house. So makes it a lot easier that way. But yeah, no, Thanksgiving was really good. Went to a friend's house. My friend does kind of an orphan Thanksgiving. So basically, just a big group of friends. We get together. Everybody makes something. We stuff ourselves and feel gross afterwards. So all in all, it was a very successful Thanksgiving.
Yeah. I don't know how many like food puns. Like this is the first year too where we did something similar. My wife and I we went to a friend's house, and like this year was something very different where there was just enough food for the people. So like there wasn't any leftovers
Oh,
and
wow.
I didn't have to do turkey for days, which I like turkey. I'm just not in love with turkey.
Yes. Well, I'm a big turkey fan also, but I usually do a hard and fast rule. Well, especially when my mother is visiting, not to bring leftovers home. At my friend's house, there were a ton of leftovers. I don't bring the leftovers home for two reasons. One, I'm going to be eating it for days, and in most cases, I'll wind up bringing home most of the desserts, which is definitely not good for me. Especially when there were 13 desserts on the table this year.
Ooh.
Um, it was crazy. And the second thing is that when my mother's visiting, we're usually running around all over the place and we're eating out. So there's no point in bringing leftovers home because they don't get eaten. So
That's
why
a fair
waste the
point.
food?
Yeah, that's a fair point. And the only leftovers we brought home this year was pie. So
Mm,
most of it has been my breakfast over the past couple of days with a cup of coffee and
very
yeah.
nice. Now moving past Thanksgiving, I actually was going to be the first topic I wanted to discuss with you today, which was Black Friday. Now, do you go shopping on Black Friday?
So I go shopping on Thanksgiving.
Oh, you're one of those.
Uh but let me explain. My wife
Sure.
I have like a we go to one store, that's it. And we go in with a list. We are in and we are out. We spend about 90% of the time in the line. So
Okay. And what is your store of choice?
Target.
Ah, Target. Okay. Did you hit up any really good like what would be like your highlight item from Black Friday?
Probably this. I haven't opened it yet. So Target, I've it's been on my list for a while, but when I go every year, I normally will just keep a list of like movies that I want or like
Hmm.
TV shows. But Target had the exclusive, and it's this Stranger Things
Ah,
season one, which is a Blu-ray DVD combo pack, but it's meant to look like a VHS.
but the
It's all
giant VHS, right? It's
yeah,
like
and
that large VHS box.
it's all like tattered and torn. My wife was like, "Why does it look like that?" I was like, "It's supposed to look like the '80s." And you get a giant Demi Gorgon poster in it as well. So
Nice.
I'm super excited to like get into this. This is my favorite thing I picked up this year.
Very cool. Very cool. And did you stop in the did you stop anywhere near the video game section?
I don't have any modern day systems, man. I'm waiting for that
I know.
N64 classic.
The N64, well, the N64 Classic has been they've been kind of quiet about that. It sounds like at the moment they're not planning on doing it, but I just think it's inevitable, especially when PlayStation's coming out with their classic in about a week actually. It comes out in a week.
Yeah, that's right. And
Yep.
I very like I was very debating on whether or not to pick it up and like just the games that they put on it, like it really wasn't I felt like it wasn't enough for me to invest into it. So I'm actually going to be sitting that one out because I still have a first generation PS1.
Well, there you go. I mean, if you have the PS1 and games for it, you don't necessarily need the classic. I actually canceled my pre-order for the PS Classic for the same reason that you just said. I wasn't impressed with the gaming selection. I mean, I was looking for the iconic games on the PlayStation, where your Tomb Raiders, your Crash Bandicoots and stuff like that. And granted, they have a couple of them on there. They have Rayman and they have like Resident Evil and stuff like that, but it just yeah, the selection just didn't wow me, which surprised me for Sony.
Yeah, especially because you think when you think of PlayStation 1, I think there's a lot of games that a lot of people are going to think of, and Larry mentioning Castlevania Symphony of the Night, I think, is another
Hmm.
one that I was really surprised didn't make its way on there.
Yeah.
Uh, Crash Bandicoot is again, like you said, like Spyro the Dragon is another one that just kind of felt like was a backbone for that system,
Hmm.
as well as Tomb Raider. So like the fact that you don't have even one of those games on there was kind of just like when they announced the full 20, I was like, pass.
Yep. No, and that's exactly how I felt too. I was like, there were a few on there where I'm like, okay, there were maybe like 4 or 5 that I was excited about, but then I looked at it and I'm like, well, I still own those. So aside from buying it for like the collector side of me, I really didn't see much of a point. So I would, I'm kind of disappointed. We'll see how the reviews are for it in general next week when it comes out. I was like, but just based on what it's offering, yeah, I kind of feel the same way, and I'm hoping they figure out a way to not for this classic. I don't know if they'd ever come out with another one. I'm doubting. Maybe I'm doubting they will because it's a lot of third party, and you got to pay license fees for third party, which is why they avoided all of those games. So if this is the best that Sony has to offer for their classic, I feel like they're a little behind the 8 ball.
Yeah, and I'm kind of curious too. Like, if I remember correctly, the way that you switch between games kind of seemed like a hassle to me.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, if you were stuck on one, you'd have to hit the reset button until you wanted to get to the one you wanted.
Oh,
I could have I could have misread that, but just like that in and of itself was kind of like a reason I was like, well, this is dumb. Like, I know that right now because a buddy of mine has a PS4 and has the PlayStation Play subscription thing,
mm-hmm.
and he says that you can play. It's very similar to like Nintendo's streaming service where you can play the classic games already. So like it kind of renders the point of a PlayStation Classic moot, in my
Mm-hmm.
opinion. So I don't know. It's kind of a misstep because I vastly love the PlayStation so much. I was just expecting a little bit more.
Yeah, no, and so was I. So, and you know what? I think the sales will reflect it. We'll see what happens. Like, people may just eat this thing up because it's the holidays, and the cool thing to do now is to release a classic, a compilation of some sorts. So we'll just see what happens. But circling back to Black Friday, and by the way, we're just so everybody knows, we're recording this on Sunday, so we've already survived Black Friday and Small Business Saturday, but we are not at Cyber Monday yet, so we're not going to talk about Cyber Monday. I don't know what you're doing, but okay.
Small Business Saturday. You gotta emphasize the teeny.
Okay.
I
Uh,
love Small Business Saturday.
okay. Not. I have. There were a lot of jokes that just popped in my head, and I'm going to hold back on all of them. So,
You perv.
you know what? I didn't even say any of the jokes. So if that's where you went, I think you have the problem.
You're probably right.
Yes, but yeah. So, and I'm a big fan of Small Business Saturday also. So, and we'll get to that in a second. So, for Black Friday, I noticed a lot again, and this is going to be obviously more current gaming than retro gaming, especially in the major stores like Target and Best Buy and Walmart and all of those. But I will say, I think the hottest ticket item that was out there for Black Friday this year on the video game market was the PS4 combo with the Spider-Man game. They were selling I think it was the 1 terabyte PlayStation 4 with a copy of Spider-Man for $199, which is insanely low because the standard price is usually 300 just for the PlayStation alone, and then you're talking $60 for the Spider-Man game. So you got both of those for $200. So you're saving $160. And everybody had it. GameStop had it, Best Buy, Target. And for some of them, they even started selling it as early as Sunday, the Sunday before Black Friday. So, and I think that was the one that sold out the most. The second one, I think, which was a big item also, was the Nintendo Switch, which was still on the market for $299, but it came with a game free, and I think it was depending on which one you got. Mario Kart 8 seemed to be the most common one. So that was, I think that was the hot one for Nintendo. I wasn't too sure about what Xbox was doing though. I mean, they had a 199 deal also, but I feel like there was less fanfare around it as opposed to Sony and Nintendo. So I'm not really sure what happened there.
Well, I think that one of the most talked about games of this year has been Spider-Man PS4.
Yep.
Even with some of the games like not being a current day streamer, but or current day player, but having friends that are a lot of people that are talking about this Switch, whether you're talking Breath of the Wild or you're talking Mario Party or Mario Kart, whatever it is.
Mhm.
I think that those are the big ticket games. I have not heard anyone talk at all about the games that are coming out for Xbox, so that's not really a surprise to me.
Yeah, yeah, because I mean, Microsoft and Sony have been like the two major, the two major consoles that have been butting heads for a while. Nintendo always seems to exist in a world of its own. They're like, like we know who we are, we know what we're making, and that's it. We like they don't tend to care necessarily about the competition, whereas Sony and Microsoft seem to always be duking it out. Yeah, and I have to say, like, for somebody who I chose 360 over the PS3 when those two came out. And I still don't own a PS3. PS3 is one of the very few consoles I do not own and have never owned. But then when Xbox One came out, I wasn't as impressed with it when I bought it and wound up getting a PS4. And I got to say, I've been a lot happier with my PS4. So, and I honestly don't know exactly why, because a lot of the games on them, I mean, a lot of them have the same games, especially the ones that I play. So I don't know if it's the menu and the way that it works, or if it's because I know more people who have a PlayStation than an Xbox, so I get to do multiplayer with them more. But it's just one of those things that where I feel like now I prefer my PS4.
Yeah, and to me, like if I'm going to invest into money, I think that the PS4 is probably a better investment over an Xbox, just because again, a lot of the same reasons. Like to me, Sony's always had the better catalogs for one.
Mm-hmm.
For two, a lot of my friends have that and swear by that. So if I'm going to invest a couple $100 into a PS4, it's going to be PlayStation, hands
Mm-hmm.
down.
Yeah, no, and I tend to agree with that, especially after after all the Black Friday sales, and I have to say there were a ton of games that were on sale also, and again, not as much with Nintendo. Definitely a lot for Sony and Microsoft. The sales were definitely out there. You're talking about some decent like 20, 30, 40% off depending on which games you got. And some of them were even newer games. Like I saw a good sale for Soul Calibur 6, WWE 2K19, NHL 19. All the sports games were basically, I think, like 30 or $35. And most of them had just come out like maybe a month or two ago. So that was really good. I wound up not. I wound up not picking up any games this year because I know. Yes, I know. Well, no current games. I know it's shocking. Normally, what happens to me on Black Friday is I order 10 to 12 games that I missed out on because they're like usually $10, 10 or $20. So I'm like, that's how I catch up with my collection. But this year, considering the fact that I haven't played the ones that I bought last year, I decided I decided to hold back a little bit. So I wound up not buying anything new. However, for Small Business Saturday, I decided to take advantage of hitting up the retro game stores that I normally go to, which are like Game Dude and Game Realms, places around my area, places that now Larry has visited. Since when he came here, I took him to all the stores and he spent more money.
Yes.
Especially with our contest rapidly approaching its end in December. I'm feeling really good that that Virtual Boy is getting destroyed. So anyway, but on Small Business Saturday, I hit up my retro shops, and they were actually doing decent sales as well. So they had, and again, the retro game shops I go to, they have current games also, and they were doing sales on their current games like 10, 20, 30%. In some cases, they were 70% off new
Wow.
games on specific new games. There was Game Realms, which is a place close to me. They had a case. They just had a separate case of games that were 50% or more off. And we were talking brand new Xbox One, PlayStation 4, so that was really cool. And then, but of course, I went shopping for retro, and they were doing 25% off all retro games, which is pretty decent when you think about it. So I wound up picking up. I only wound up picking up 3 titles for myself. The rest were like the rest that I bought were gifts. But I picked up WCW NWO Thunder for
Nice.
PlayStation, which I wasn't a big fan of, but after we had Larry and I were discussing last week how I'm starting to collect all wrestling games just across all platforms because big wrestling fan growing up, always owned all the wrestling games anyway, and I thought it would be kind of cool to see the progression of how wrestling games have evolved since they first came out back in the 80s.
Nice.
So, yep. So picked up WCW NWO Thunder, and then for Game Boy Color, now that I have my Retro Freak, which plays 16 different systems, I picked up a couple of Game Boy Color games that I've never played, and I'm very excited to play them because I'm a huge Legend of Zelda fan, as you know. The shirt gives it away. The stuff behind me gives it away. But I picked up Legend of Zelda, Oracle of Ages, and Oracle of Seasons for Game Boy Color, which was kind of like a two-parter, basically. So I've always wanted to play those. So I'm very excited to get my hands on those. But that's really all I did in terms of retro game shopping. So it was pretty much at it was minimum.
Wow. Okay. Yeah,
Yep.
I totally forgot that you had a retro freak. So like when you said Game Boy Color, it was like, oh, he's breaking his no
I'm breaking my,
handheld rule.
I'm breaking my no handheld. Well, I have to say the Nintendo Switch is kind of breaking me out of my no handheld rule because when you take it out of the dock and you play it, obviously it's handheld. The screen is bigger, obviously, than a Game Boy Color or a Game Boy Advance or any of those. But I travel a lot, so I need that handheld system with me.
That screen is massive though.
Yes.
I didn't believe how big a Switch was until I held one for myself, and I was like, this is like cradling a small child.
Yeah, pretty much. It's about like I'd say it's like a small tablet size. Um,
Hmm.
and with somebody like me who's like I said, who's mobile because of my job, getting used to a handheld, even if it's a bigger screen, but getting used to the fact that I have a handheld, has definitely been has been awesome for me, especially when I'm sitting on flights for 12 hours or more. Um, but now that I'm getting used to that, and because of my Retro Freak that hooks up to my TV, so I can play all of these games on a 55-inch screen television that obviously they were not made to play on. I get to go back now and buy Game Boy games and Game Gear games and all of that stuff and see what I've been missing for the past almost 30 years.
See, I always had, and like I need to buy a new charger for my SP because I always had like the Game Boy games with me. That was just a constant, whether it was vacation or it was school. Like there was I wore the crap out of my Game Boy Advance, and I need to get a new charger for it because I desperately miss playing it.
Okay, is it just a charger issue?
Well, all right, so like my charger, all right, I lost my charger for a couple years and I found it a couple months ago, and
Hmm.
I was like, "Ooh, $10 I can save." And I plugged it in and it acknowledges the charge and then it just does not charge.
Okay.
So I'm just thinking it just needs to actually get a new charger for it. And they still make chargers like that, so
Yeah,
I'm gonna
or you
get one.
just I was just gonna say, or just hit up a local retro shop by you. I'm sure they have original Game Boy Advance chargers that you can grab.
I never thought about that.
Yeah. Because one of the things that I always find is that when you get those third party chargers, I think you run a risk sometimes of them working and not working. I'm in the process right now of trying to figure out for my Sega CD if the issue with it is the actual console or the AC adapter that I have, because I've tried two different third party AC adapters. Neither of them are working for it, but they're not made specifically for a Sega CD.
Mm.
So I'm actually gonna go and the retro stores by me. Neither of them have an original Sega CD AC adapter. So I'm actually gonna go on eBay, try and track one down, and then see if my Sega CD is actually broken or if it just needed the original AC adapter. Because sometimes that's all it needs.
That's true. I
So
was I was so thankful last year when I bought my Genesis that I didn't have any issues like that.
yeah. And have you been playing your Genesis at all?
I've played it like twice since our Hope Hope Station Marathon back in August,
Okay.
so I just have not made the time for it.
hmm No, trust me, I understand that. I've got 20 systems and time for none of them. But anyway, so yeah, so small. Just came back to Small Business Saturday. Small Business Saturday, I thought was at least moderately successful for me only because I was very limited into where I went. Black Friday shopping for me is always crazy. I usually go out in the morning and spend 3 or 4 hours shopping, which I did. I left my mom in J.C. Penney, and I went to all the stores I needed to do my Christmas shopping. So it was a little game light this year. But I'm kind of thankful that it was game light this year because, again, for one, I already have enough games that I haven't played that I need to play, and two, I want to win the contest between Larry and me so that I can destroy that Virtual Boy in a month when I'm in New York for Christmas. But for everybody else out there, let us know what you guys wound up picking up on Black Friday or Small Business Saturday. We'd love to hear it. And who got the best deal out there? Were you happy with the deals you got or the games that you got? Let us know. All right, Josh, it is time for this week's wacky retro game. Now, we have a wacky retro game for a little while, so I'm kind of happy I got to dig one up just for you. So I hope you enjoy this one.
Go for it.
All right. So this week's wacky retro game was created for the Nintendo Entertainment System back in 1990, and it was a game called Zombie Nation. Okay, now have you ever heard of this game before?
I have not, so lay it on me.
Okay, I will lay it on you. So the basic plot of Zombie Nation is that the year is 1999, and an alien meteor named Darkseid crashes in Nevada. Okay, rapidly turning everybody who lives in Nevada into zombies. So it's up to you to save the world from this zombie invasion. And the way that you do it as your character is you are a disembodied ghost head of a samurai named Namakubi. So you're not a person, you are a disembodied ghost head of a samurai. So let alone the fact that an alien thing crashes to Earth and makes a bunch of zombies. You just happen to be a zombie samurai head not a zombie, yeah, a ghost samurai head that's going to stop this from happening. Okay, so what you do is you float through different American cities. Oh, by the way, you're also a ghost samurai head that lives in America. So figure that out. Your job is to float through different American cities, and you destroy buildings with eyeballs and vomit while catching hostages falling from the wreckage. So basically, you're destroying the buildings and then saving the people that are falling from the buildings, and you're doing this with the power of your eyeballs and vomit.
You are so talking me into this game. I'm not gonna lie.
Sounds good. Yeah. So it's a very weird. It's basically Larry would like this game because it's kind of a side-scrolling shooter. And one of the highlights of the game is when you get to attack and take out an animated version of the Statue of Liberty. Because who doesn't want to fight the Statue of Liberty in a video game, right?
Yes.
Yes.
I need this game now.
You need this game. So it was developed for the Famicom. It was ported to the US. And just, yeah, I mean, I don't even know what else to say about this unless, like, if you are in the mood to play a ghost head of a samurai, Zombie Nation is the one for you. And that is this week's wacky retro game.
All right, Ant. So this week Disney dropped a ball on us and gave us
a bomb?
A ball. I mean,
okay.
I guess it could be a bomb.
Okay.
And gave us our first look at the new Lion King, which had me in tears. Not gonna lie, it's beautiful. Jon Favreau doing it, and
yep, Lion King is my favorite Disney movie of all time.
And so around the time that Lion King came out, Disney was just on a ball with a lot of these NES games and Sega Genesis and Super Nintendo. and we're in this like weird transformation stage where either games are being remastered or remade, and got me thinking. Disney has been on this string of live action remakes for the last couple of years, whether you're
Hmm.
talking Cinderella, Maleficent, Beauty and the Beast, Jungle Book. They've all been good for the most part. We're looking at you, Maleficent.
Hmm.
Anyways, but I thought it would be then you have these video games that are being remade, like the upcoming Final Fantasy VII
Hmm.
and Resident Evil, and just all of these games that have just become so iconic over the years. And so I would think the next logical step to kind of take would be for Disney to kind of take the games that were so amazing, like Aladdin and Lion King and Toy Story, all three of those getting big screen updates next year. I think it would
Hmm.
be perfect time to let's see what they can do in the game realm. Because Disney
Okay.
hasn't touched the game realm in a while outside of Kingdom Hearts. Kingdom Hearts has been, I feel like, kind of like their sole focus. But I think that doing something like a live action Lion King, where you could maybe like explore Pride Rock, would be a really cool concept. Facing off against the hyenas would be something really cool. Maybe
Hmm.
have like an open world Aladdin. I don't know. I think that like taking some of those older games and bringing them into the newer generation consoles with updating the movies and updating the games would be something pretty sweet to check out.
Well, and you bring up a really good point because one of the topic that I did want to talk about, obviously, are retro games being remade because it seems to be happening more and more often. It's interesting that the video game world is kind of catching up with the film world because, as we know, films are getting remade all the time now. We're talking, just recycling ideas from the 60s, 70s, 80s, just literally remaking the same film with a new cast. With video games now, we're getting that too. Like you said, Final Fantasy's doing it, Resident Evil's doing it, God of War and Shadow of the Colossus, they just did it. So it's just becoming a common thing to just and Devil May Cry is also they've done it several times as well. There are so many games that have been remade over the course of time. Um, and I guess the question I have to you is like when you bring up the Disney ones, because like Lion King, love the game on the Super Nintendo. Aladdin, fantastic on the Genesis and the Super Nintendo. When you're talking about remaking these, do you want them remade as they were? Or do you want them, like, in other words, like same style gameplay? Because, like, the games that have been remade, like God of War, Shadow of the Colossus, and soon to be Final Fantasy VII, the gameplay is still the same. It's just that they're remaking it for current consoles, so updating graphics and stuff like that. Do you want to see those games remade as they were, just updated, or do you actually want to see more of a newer game based off the way the original game played? So, like you said, more open world Agrabah for Aladdin as opposed to just updating the side scrolling 16-bit game.
I think it would be like, all right, so like my point from my argument first would be look at Beauty and the Beast, and then you look at Beauty and the Beast, the live action with Dan Stevens that came out last year,
Mm-hmm.
and they're almost identical in their voice, but the live action explored a little bit more of the backstory and kind of fleshed out a little bit more of like Gaston and Belle and the Beast, just a little bit that the animated movie didn't really offer. So I think it would be like they'll probably do the same with Aladdin next year. They'll probably do the same with The Lion King, where
Mm-hmm.
you'll some things will take a little bit longer in the live action that didn't necessarily take as long in the cartoon, because with cartoons generally around that time you have like 80 to 90 minutes is usually the goal for like the window for how you want to tell a story, whereas these live action ones they're getting to be 110 minutes to 130 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
So they're a lot more bigger in scope and you're telling a lot more story, a lot more broader. So I think to have a video game that would reflect that, it would be you would have to have something that would be reminiscent of the original, but kind of also not only updating it as terms of graphics, but also updating it as far as like story. So you are getting that open world. It seems like a lot of these newer generation consoles, you're getting more open worlds to kind of explore. And I think that uh, just having something like, say, The Lion King, where it was like you're saying, like it was that side-scrolling adventure. I think that it would be very awesome to kind of get something like Spider-Man PS4, where you get to explore so much of the Marvel
Mm-hmm.
universe. I think it'd be really cool to take young Simba and get to explore Pride Rock, kind of in the vein of I Just Want to Be King. So like I think that it needs a little bit of both, where you are kind of taking a little bit from column A of what made the video games so great and replayable back in the day, but
Mm-hmm.
also at the same time bringing it into newer generations, to where you're not just updating the graphics, but you're updating what makes the game replayable. So open world, new bosses, stuff along those lines.
Okay. Yeah, no, and I like that idea too, like, because especially with game like a game like The Lion King, I wouldn't mind running around Pride Rock. I wouldn't mind running around Agrabah and Aladdin and stuff like that. Um, I just don't know at what point does it venture away from being an actual remake and just becoming a new game, you know what I mean? So it's kind of like, it's a good example would be DuckTales. When DuckTales came out, along with like Chippendales Rescue Rangers and stuff like that on digital download on the Xbox, it was basically just the original games. They just remastered them and updated the graphics and whatnot. So I guess it's almost like it's like a two-part conversation in a way. It's like, do you want to take what worked originally and then update it, or do you just want to remake it for nostalgic purposes?
Well, I think too, Disney has, or like any games really, you have so many of these systems, whether like you're talking, like we were talking about earlier, whether you're talking, Nintendo Classic, or the Super Nintendo Classic, or the NES, or the PlayStation Classic, or all of these like 9 billion other classics, or like
Hmm.
commemorative versions that are coming out. Like you have so much of those already. And when you're talking about gaming as a whole, like what makes those old games so iconic and so replayable is the story that you're telling and the gameplay that you're uh, giving the audience. So I think it has to be that balance. You have to give them something familiar, but you also have to give them something that's gonna separate it. So like
Hmm.
I was just talking with a buddy of mine on Friday, and he was asking the difference. Why should I invest my time to watch these updated live action versions of these Disney animated films? And
Hmm.
it's okay. Not only are you bringing the graphics look crisper, the story, I feel like also it adds more depth to it that you didn't get with the original product. So I guess it is like you're saying, like I totally agree, like it is that you have to separate from your source material, but I think at the same time, like you also have to have that depth and that open world version of, I think it's still telling the same story. It's just a little bit more exploration. Open world games are something that you can just continuously come back to, because Pride Rock's a big place, or I can't pronounce the world of Aladdin, but it's a big place.
Agrabah.
Agrabah, yeah. So like you can just explore multiple different versions of like kingdoms and stuff like that. And with Aladdin, you could also explore different other kingdoms outside of Jafar's, or even kind of bringing maybe some of the stuff that, like, some of these sequels from the worlds of the sequels as like playable content as well.
Okay. Okay. Um, Makes sense. I mean, it makes sense, especially in the world of Disney, but let's step outside of Disney for a moment and talk about just gaming in general,
Go for it.
and remakes that you and I maybe would like to see. You've talked
Mm.
about Disney. I was going through just the library in my brain of what were some of the my favorite games that I enjoyed playing that I would love to see remade or updated on a new console. The first one that popped to mind is probably not a very well-known one. It was well-known to me because I played it all the time. But it was a game for the NES called Archon, and I believe it was also on the Commodore 64. And basically, it was a version of it was almost like a version of battle. It was almost like a version of battle chess in a way. So you had the light side and the dark side, and it was it took place on a chessboard. The pieces did not move like chess. Everybody had a certain number of spaces they can move. But then what would happen was the object was to take over specific tiles on the board. There were five tiles that had like I want to say five. There were a number of tiles that had like these power grids in a way, and you had to take over those spaces and then ultimately eliminate everybody on the other side. The way you did that was when you landed on a space that somebody else was on, it would switch to a battle screen. And then your character would fight their character, and depending on who the character was, some of them had a different advantage. So in other words, like if you were fighting as a golem, you would have to get close and punch the person because your whole idea was that you were powerful, but you had to hit them. Whereas other characters like a wizard would be able to run around the screen and shoot at you. So depending on and then everybody had different speeds and stuff like that. There was one guy I want to say there was one guy who could teleport, which was
That's awesome.
interesting. Yeah, so sometimes the battles were unfair, sometimes they were fair, uh, depending on how you were able to play it. But it was just a really fun concept for a game. And I get it. It's more strategy, more game, like board game esque based in a way. But I would love to see something like that on a current gen system because I think you can definitely play around with it a lot more. Where you start with that basic chess type look. I was like, but when you get to the battle scenes, you can just go fully into like a 3D arena mode type of situation, and you have that battle between the two characters, and then go back to the board. I just think that would be a fun idea.
Left choice. I like it. Because I remember you guys talking about it a couple episodes ago with the Teflon or something along those lines.
With the what?
The gaming system that's coming out in 2020 starts with
Oh,
a T.
the Intellivision Amico.
That one.
Mm-hmm.
Or as Larry says, the Amigo.
The Amigo, yes, the Amigo, the Intellivision Amigo.
I think a game that I would like to see remade I'm surprised it hasn't been remade, and I think it would be a perfect platform for something like a VR would be the original Castlevania.
Oh, okay. Yeah, because Castlevania has come out. I mean, it's. I mean, I think it's come out multiple times. I want to say for download. I think it's been available, but in its original, its original content. But remaking that and updating the graphics would be a really interesting and clean kind of side-scrolling look. But I guess I want to say the focus has been on. I don't know, when was the last Castlevania game?
It has been a while.
It's been a little while.
I think 2012 was the last time if I remember correctly.
Well, let me rephrase that. Castlevania console, like actual console, because I know handheld, I believe they still make Castlevania games because they're generally side scrollers, and side scrollers tend to now fall towards the 3DS in a way, as opposed to a major console. But yeah, I agree with you. I would love to see that. I know Castlevania is coming out with they announced recently, and we talked about it like a month or two ago, that they're releasing Rondo of Blood, which is a very rare game that you can't get hold of, and I want to say with Symphony of the Night on PS4. So we're going to be getting some of those old Castlevanias updated. But in terms of the original, I would love to see the second one, Simon's Curse, which we know Larry absolutely hates. He couldn't even get through the live stream completion of it. But Castlevania 2 to me was like, I liked it because it brought in a little more RPG-esque element to it. There was more of a story as opposed to get through this level, beat the boss, and then move to the next level. It was more along the lines of you actually had like this bigger purpose of collecting all of Dracula's parts so that you can basically resurrect him and kill him again. that's generalizing it a lot because it doesn't make much sense. Why would you want to resurrect somebody to kill them again? Um, but I would love to see that one get remade. I think
Yeah,
that
with
would be
that.
awesome. You're good with
Yeah.
bringing something back to life just to kill it? Okay.
And if they could do like if they brought it back out, say like April, you could bring it out and go head to head with Pet Cemetery because sometimes dead is better.
That's right. And I'm actually looking forward to that remake. Even though I think the original movie is awesome and the book is fantastic. Um, but yeah, like I think you're onto something there with Castlevania, another series that I would love to see remade for a current console, and I think this would be really awesome for the survival horror like friggin' gore fest genre. Would be Splatterhouse.
Ooh, I
Splatterhouse,
love
yeah,
Splatterhouse.
Splatterhouse is awesome. Just I had the third one. I had Splatterhouse 3 on Genesis when I was a kid. And I just loved how dark that game was, how it was just like really, really gross, really gory. The original one I now own on the TurboGrafx 16. I picked it up on one of my trips to Japan. So, but yeah, would definitely love to get my hands on a remade Splatterhouse for a current gen system.
That would be really good. And watch. If you haven't figured out by now, I'm a movie guy, so like a lot of the games that I'm listing,
No, no, you're not. You're not. I can't tell at all by the posters behind you.
and of this
Venom and Ghost in the Shell.
film reel tattoo. Oh wait, no, I
Wait,
guess
where
you
is it?
can't see.
Where is it? There it is.
It's
No, no, I saw it.
here, and then it just kind
Hmm.
of goes all my arm. But anyways, I watched you play it during the Hope Station back in August, and I've wanted to play it ever since. But I think Back to the Future, maybe not a direct remake, but uh, a little bit more in depth than just kind of what they've already gotten. I think Back to the Future could be a cool opportunity to do a video game.
Yeah, no. Based on the movies, yeah. I mean, I really feel like the Back to the Future series did not get a proper video game because let's face it, that game on the NES was not very good. Um, It definitely wasn't. And they had several games. There was a Back to the Future 2 and 3 game that came out on NES and Super Nintendo, and Genesis, I believe, as well. But then there was a game that came out on the Wii and then eventually, I think, the 360, which was kind of like a Telltale series game. It takes place after the events of the films. So there was and that game I actually started playing through it on my I want to say on my Xbox One. That's pretty decent. But I agree with you. Like Back to the Future, I think it has so much story to it that I think probably making a new game of it as opposed to a remake would be awesome, an awesome way to go. Now, who your fan base is for it is really what's going to be in question because the films are 30 years old at this time. They're not planning on remaking that series, or at least I hope they're not, because that's one of those. You're hoping for a remake or not a remake?
Not a remake. Like there's just certain films, certain
Yeah,
properties that you just should not
no,
touch.
like remaking The Godfather, remaking Jaws. There are certain things that just need to be left alone, and I believe Back to the Future falls into that category. I personally would love to see a game made of it. I just don't know if there's an audience out there for it. I know I would be one of them for sure. Um, but yeah, I do agree, but I do agree. Back to the Future would be nice to get a new game. I would not want to see the original one remade for sure.
Mm.
Um, but jumping, I was trying to jump around a little bit and think about other games. But I think that, there's such a large library of games on all systems. So seeing something, and depending on what you like, what you don't like, in terms of what you want remade, obviously is subjective to your own experiences and the games that you played maybe growing up. I wouldn't personally like. I don't know if I necessarily would want to see anything from more current systems, like when PS2 games, like we talked earlier, God of War, Shadow of the Colossus, and stuff like that. When those are getting remade for current consoles, they're really just graphic updates because I feel like those games aren't old enough to earn like a full remake. Like I want to see like what would an 8-bit game look like today if you took all the original Mega Man games and you updated them for today, as opposed to just re-releasing, you re-released the collections on them? What would those look like today? I'm assuming they would be more 3D, but um, but those are the types of things that I think of when I think of remakes.
No, and I think you're absolutely right. I think that we're kind of in this like age now where video games aren't just video games; they have to be equally as cinematic as gameplay.
Mhm.
And there's a lot of those. I think it would be cool to kind of experience some of those 8-bit games like you're talking about. Like we got to see that this year with Breath of the Wild. I think it would be really you got to see that with Mario, the new Mario game.
Mhm.
I think kind of bringing something into like a like Mega Man or like Castlevania or a lot of these like old, really beloved 8-bit games would be awesome to
Mhm.
experience.
Yep. No, I agree as well. And then and again, for everybody who watches or listens to us, are there specific games that you've been waiting for the companies to come out and remake them for a current gen system so you can play them? Because let's face it, not everybody has the original consoles to play with. I know there are emulator sites out there, but we know that those are getting cracked down on. So the only way that you're going to be able to play these games soon are going to be if they get remade or available for digital download. So, let us know. Sound off. What are the games that you guys want to see remade for your PS4, for your Xbox One, or for your Nintendo Switch? We would love to hear from you guys and and see if how your list compares to ours. Okay, it's another week and another batch of retro birthdays. Josh, I don't know if you enjoy these segments as much as I do, but I love pointing out how old certain games are because it just points out how old I am. I don't know how you feel about that, but I know how I'm feeling about it. So this week's retro birthdays, we've got a bit of a handful, and a couple of them I'm pointing out more for fun than anything else. And I like to go backwards in these just to get older and older. So we're going to start in 1999, and I wanted to point this game out specifically because Josh, I know you're a Castlevania fan, and I also know that you did live stream the original Castlevania, well, not the original, but the Castlevania that was on N64 many moons ago. Remember? Your
Don't
struggle, yeah, your struggle to get through just
don't
that first
remind
skeleton.
us.
No, no, no. I need to
Yeah,
remind you.
don't
Yes.
remind me. Yeah, that was actually I got to actually take that experience and talk about it on our show for our worst video game experience back in
Nice.
August. And that and Superman 64 were like
Oh
two of the
boy.
worst games ever.
Yeah,
So, ugh.
Castlevania did not translate very well to the N64. And there were two games that came out on the N64 for Castlevania, and we are celebrating the 19th birthday of one of them. So, happy 19th birthday to Castlevania Legacy of Darkness on the N64. Um, Moving on from there, we have in 1995. So we're talking about the 23rd birthday for Donkey Kong Country 2, Diddy Kong's Quest on the Super Nintendo. Did you ever play any of the Donkey Kong Country series?
Absolutely
Yeah,
love those series.
those were really great side-scrolling games that looked like they belonged on the N64 as opposed to the Super Nintendo. It really pushed the graphics on the Super Nintendo to show what 16-bit could actually do. And I was always impressed with that. And the Donkey Kong Country series, there were three of them on the Super Nintendo. All great games. Highly recommend them. Also celebrating its 23rd birthday today. And I'm really sorry you're not here for this one, Larry, but Josh and I will do our best to act excited. But celebrating its 23rd birthday today is Wario Land for the Virtual Boy.
Whoa. Hashtag Phoebe sucks.
Thank you. I don't think I could have put it any better than that. So we're just going to leave it right there. Moving on to 1985, we're jumping a whole decade and going to the 33rd birthday of a game that I know Larry can't stand. Also, but I am a big fan of this game. And it was released on the NES in Japan 33 years ago. Happy birthday to Burger Time.
I want to play this game so bad.
You've
Uh,
never played Burger Time?
I've never played it, and I only know it because Bob's Burgers did a simulated like version of it,
Okay.
and I googled it, and I was like looking through it, and I was like, I need to play this game.
Oh, there's no question. You can't go wrong with this game because it's all about a chef making a burger. What's not to love? You know?
I you're selling me already.
Yeah, no, you definitely need to try out Burger Time. One of the classic arcade games that I used to love playing, and then when they ported it to console, I was a very very happy child when this thing came out on the NES. So a very happy birthday to Burger Time. Jumping back a year to 1984, released in Japan on the NES. I believe it was one of the earliest titles for the NES or the Famicom at the time. Excite Bike, which was another game I absolutely loved. I don't know. Have you ever played that one?
No, but I know of it, and it this is not my cup of tea.
Not your cup of tea. Well, it was one of the classic games released on the Nintendo Entertainment System. One of the earliest games released on the Nintendo Entertainment System, and it was just a fun racing game. It was just like dirt biking, and it was an interesting concept considering how young the system was, and of all the games to like remember fondly, Excite Bike you would not think would be one of them, but the game was just awesome. You just ran on different tracks. You got to, and for probably one of the first games where you got to create your own. You actually got to create your own track in this game. And for
Wow.
something on the NES, I mean, that's a big deal. Um, so very happy. Where are we at? We're at the 34th birthday of Excite Bike. So happy 34 years, Excite Bike. And then we're going to jump way back to 1974. So we got a 44th. And this is a game I didn't know about, but while I was doing my research, came across, and I just wanted to bring it up. It was a game called Frogs, and it was released on the mainframe. So released on a computer, and basically the idea behind the game Frogs was you had 8 frogs, four on opposite sides of each other. The object was to get the frogs to swap places on the board in the least number of moves. So it's really just frog swapping.
It seemed super super simple until you said least amount of moves.
In the least amount of moves. Yeah, and the way you did that was, whenever you go to a restaurant or a diner, they have those peg games that are in the shape of a triangle, and you get the pegs to hop over each other, type of thing.
Yes,
Okay,
love those games.
right. That's basically how frogs worked. You had to take the frog, hop over another frog to get to the other side, and get them on opposite sides of each other the correct way. Very in a weird way. You didn't eliminate the frogs, but you had to swap. Um, anyway, gaming back in the 70s, I mean, they're still finding themselves. Um, However, 4 years, nothing to stop us for having games we're this week. Sure is. Josh, I think that's it for this week, and with the exception of I think we covered a couple of good topics, and there was one other one I wanted to cover before we leave. For those of you who follow us on Facebook, we were actually taking a poll on whether or not you wanted to hear and see the Retro Gamers cover more current generation systems, or stream current generation games along with all the retro game coverage that we do. And Josh, I know that you actually weighed in on this poll. Do you want to tell everybody what you voted?
No,
You don't want to tell anybody what you voted?
no, that's exactly what I voted.
You voted no. Yeah, you voted no, and several other people voted no. However, based on our poll results, the majority of people have voted yes. They would like to see more current generation coverage, more current game streaming, along with the retro game coverage. So the people have spoken. I think we're going to start heading into that vein moving forward. Now, retro gaming is still going to be the main focus of our show, but we are going to start to pepper in a bit more current gaming as well. Because let's face it, Larry and I, we're gamers. We're gonna play retro games, but we do play a lot of current games as well. So since we are already doing that, why not, share that as well. So we will start doing that moving forward.
All right, so I have a suggestion.
Uh-oh.
Okay,
Yes.
since you're the production manager of the Retro Gamers,
Hmm.
you guys should change the name to the 95% of the time Retro Gamers podcast and video game streamings, and also in parentheses you put hashtag VB sucks.
Okay. That's a wonderful suggestion. However, I don't think anybody would remember that title. I don't even think I remember the title you just said.
I forgot to put in there that it has to be Variety Hour.
Oh,
You
okay.
gotta
So
throw that
the
in there
the
because
the
that's
the
retro.
90% retro gamers podcast and live streamers parentheses hashtag VB sucks close parentheses variety hour.
Yes,
Okay.
it's already selling itself. You hear that
Yep.
money? The sound of money
No,
printing.
no, yeah, no. It's raining money in here. I can see it right now. It's raining something, but it's definitely not money. Um, I appreciate that suggestion, Josh. I will talk to Larry about that one, and I'm sure we will come to a consensus on it, on whether or
If
not we want to use that title.
if you throw the Virtual Boy anywhere, he's automatically sold. So,
Yeah, but when it becomes hashtag VB sucks, he kind of shies away from it. So
but it's still
um,
Virtual Boy. It's still getting the attention.
that's very true. We do give the Virtual Boy too much attention. I think maybe the best kind of attention at this point is to ignore it completely.
Yeah, I mean, just the grand finale is going to be when you smash it.
Yeah, I think yeah. Oh man, I'm feeling really good about that. And again, for those of you who are just tuning in to our show, Josh started a contest unofficially, but then it became official. But Josh had suggested a contest at the end of last year or very early this year. I think it was very early this year in January, on whoever spent the least amount of money purchasing retro games this year. It was one of two things. The winner of the contest would get their own Virtual Boy. Now, why? Now, as people know, I despise the Virtual Boy. Larry loves the Virtual Boy. So why would we want to have a contest where the winner gets a Virtual Boy? And the answer was this: because I vowed if I won this contest that I would destroy the Virtual Boy live on the Retro Gamers podcast, and we would live stream it. And at this moment, or at the halfway point of the year, Larry had spent, I believe, triple the amount that I have spent on retro games. So, as of our 100th episode, I was well in the lead to winning this contest. Now, I've definitely been spending some more, so we don't know what the final tally is going to be. However, I'm fairly confident that I'm going to come out on top here, which means that I'm going to get my hands on a Virtual Boy just so I can destroy it.
And I'm excited for that. I wish I could be in the same room, but I
Well,
guess
Josh, I was going to say, I kind of want you there. I mean, since you started this and you're the unofficial referee of this, we got to get you down for this. We got to get you come in person. We're going to be doing this, by the way, at the end of the year when on our last episode of the year when I am in New York. We're going to reveal the totals and the Virtual Boy. The Virtual Boy has been purchased, so we have the Virtual Boy in hand. We just need to determine who's going to get it.
fair enough.
So
I did not know the plot twist. Okay.
yes, plots. No, the virtual. Well, you got to remember. I mean, this thing needed to be purchased. So right as of right now, we have the Virtual Boy on hand. In 4 weeks' time, either
Who's
Larry's gonna get it and play it, or Anthony's gonna get it and destroy it.
who's in possession of it?
It is a third party who is
Okay.
in possession of it, so that Larry cannot enjoy said Virtual Boy.
Okay. That was
Yeah.
that was my biggest concern.
Yeah,
Is
yeah. That Larry is sitting at home right now playing it nonstop because he knows it's going to get destroyed. No, it is in the hands of a third party, so that neither of us have the Virtual Boy, but it is sitting there waiting to be handed off. And yes, Josh, we need to get you in for that. We'll figure that out. We'll figure out the little details, but we'll work it out.
Judd Nelson moment right there.
Little Judd Nelson moment. But outside of that, I think that sums it up this week. Josh, I really want to thank you so much for coming in and filling in for Larry, who I'm sure would have loved to have been here with you as well, but as we know, he couldn't be. So thank you for joining us, and please tell all of our listeners and viewers where they can find you.
Absolutely. So if you guys are watching this right now on YouTube, you guys can go just go to youtube.com/victims and villains. We are on virtually everything. Just search victims and villains, whether it is Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, or iTunes. And even more importantly, if you guys are watching this and you or someone you know is struggling with suicide or depression, you can go to victimsandvillains.net/hope, where you can find a plethora of resources to overcome the season that you're in, because today does not have to be your final day.
Yeah, and especially now with the holidays coming up on us, I know that depression is a big issue for a lot of people around the holidays. So this is probably even more important to bring up right now as well.
Yeah, and it's weird because like I have really fond memories of the holidays. I was blessed growing up, but then I will talk to other people that will be like, it was a time where like, my families would squabble, or it was anxiousness because of, bills, but also Christmas and just things like that. So if that falls for you, please reach out. That's the reason that we push the content that we do, is so that you guys can know that there is hope.
Yeah. Yeah, no, and it's and I can vouch for Josh. I mean, his podcast is awesome, and of course, the cause that you're fighting for is amazing. So, you always have us in your corner, with that. Yeah. And then for the retro gamers, as always, you can find us on www.theretrogamers.com, facebook.com/retrogamerspodcast. You can get us at Instagram at Retro Gamers Podcast. And if you want to watch our shows now, you can watch them on our YouTube channel, or if you just listen to them, most podcast sites have us. So iTunes, Spreaker, Amazon Alexa, iHeartRadio, wherever you listen to podcasts, you can hear us. And that concludes this week's Retro Gamers Podcast. And we will see you on the flip side.